One Tuesday afternoon, Maya's debit card was declined at a grocery store, not for a luxury purchase, not for a shopping spree, just eggs, rice, bananas, and the cheapest coffee on the shelf. That moment changed the way she thought about money forever. She stood there pretending the card reader was broken, while the cashier stared at the screen, and the woman behind her sighed just loud enough to be heard. That night, she opened her banking app and saw the truth. She was not broke because she never worked. She was broke because every dollar she earned already had a job before it arrived. If you like calm, honest personal finance breakdowns with real numbers and no fake promises, subscribe to the channel before we go deeper. A few weeks later, Maya learned a simple dividend formula. At a 4% yield, every $25,000 invested could pay about $1,000 a year. At first, that number almost offended her. $1,000 a year sounded tiny compared to rent, car insurance, groceries, student loans, and the emergency expenses that seemed to appear whenever life noticed she was trying. But then she looked at her phone bill. $90 a month, $1,080 a year. Suddenly, that small dividend number had a face. She was not trying to replace her whole paycheck anymore. She was trying to replace one bill. One annoying bill that showed up every month like it owned a corner of her life. So she made her first target simple. She wanted enough invested so her dividends could pay her phone bill forever. It was not glamorous. Nobody makes a viral post about defeating a phone bill. But for Maya, it was the first time money stopped feeling like fog and started becoming a map. Maya printed the number and taped it inside a kitchen cabinet where nobody else would see it. $30,000 invested. That was the rough amount she needed at a 4% yield to create enough annual dividend income to cover the phone bill that had annoyed her for years. The number felt too big on Monday and strangely possible by Friday. Not easy, not close, but possible in the way a long road looks possible after you finally know which direction to walk. So she changed one thing first. Every payday, before rent, before groceries, before the little purchases that made stress feel softer, she moved money into her brokerage account. Not a heroic amount, not the kind of number people brag about, just enough to prove that her future still had a vote. The first dividend payment was $11.32. She almost laughed, then she almost cried, because it was tiny, but it was also clean. Nobody had yelled at her for it. Nobody had scheduled her for it. Nobody had asked her to stay late, smile harder, answer faster, or pretend she cared about a meeting that should have been an email. That $11 came from ownership, and ownership felt different from income. Comment notes below and check the pinned comment. I'll leave a simple dividend numbers sheet there so you can see what different portfolio sizes might actually pay without guessing. By the end of the first year, Maya had not changed her life from the outside. Same apartment, same used car, same job, same grocery store, but something inside her had moved. She still worried about money, but the worry had changed shape. Before, money felt like something that happened to her. Now it felt like something she could slowly direct. The second year, Maya's portfolio crossed $15,000. The dividends were still small, but they had started arriving with a rhythm she could trust. One payment came in while she was sitting in her car outside work, eating a sandwich she packed from home because the lunch place near the office had quietly become $15 before tip. She looked at the dividend notification, then looked at the building where she spent most of her waking hours. For the first time, she understood why ownership mattered. Her job paid her only when she showed up. Her investments paid her because she had sent money ahead to work in her place. That idea stayed with her. It made certain spending decisions feel different. A weekend trip was no longer just a weekend trip. A new car was no longer just a new car. Every choice either built the machine or delayed it. Then her coworker Jason showed her a stock yielding 13%. He said Maya was moving too slowly. He said boring ETFs were for people who did not know where the real opportunities were. Maya wanted to believe him. 13% sounded like a shortcut through the woods. But when she looked closer, the company had been falling for years. The dividend looked stretched, and the chart felt like a warning with a nice headline. 6 months later, Jason stopped mentioning the stock. The dividend had been cut, the price had fallen again, and the shortcut had turned into the kind of lesson people only whisper about after losing money. Maya kept buying the boring investment, not because it was exciting, but because excitement had never paid her phone bill. By year 4, Maya's phone bill was no longer the real target. It had become too small for the person she was becoming. Her portfolio had crossed $30,000, and the dividends were close enough to cover that first bill she once thought would follow her forever. She did not celebrate by buying something. She celebrated by opening a notebook and writing down the next target. Car insurance. That one was bigger. It meant more capital, more patience, more ordinary Fridays where she chose the grocery store over takeout and the brokerage account over another thing that would not matter by Monday. But Maya was not depriving herself anymore. That was the part people around her did not understand. She was not saying no because she hated pleasure. She was saying no because she finally had somewhere better to send the money. Every dollar invested felt like a tiny employee walking into the future before her. Some would pay part of a bill, some would buy another share, some would sit quietly until time made them stronger. Meanwhile, Jason kept looking for faster ways, high-yield funds, options income, random stock tips from people who sounded confident on the internet. Maya learned that impatience often dresses itself up as intelligence. It tells you that slow money is for people who do not understand the game, when really slow money is often the only money that survives the game. Comment notes below if you want the dividend numbers sheet. I'll leave it in the pinned comment so you can see how small bills turn into real portfolio targets over time. The practical lesson from Maya's story is simple. Do not begin by asking how to replace your entire salary. Begin by asking which bill deserves to disappear first. Over time, Maya stopped thinking about dividends as income and started thinking about them as proof. Proof that a small decision repeated long enough could become stronger than a stressful month. Proof that a person did not need to be born into wealth to start buying back pieces of their own life. She still had bills. She still had bad weeks. She still had mornings where work felt heavier than it should. But now, every dividend payment reminded her that her paycheck was no longer the only thing standing between her and survival. The solution was not complicated. Pick one real bill, find its yearly cost, divide it by a realistic yield, make that your first investment target. Then automate the habit until it becomes too normal to negotiate. And never confuse high yield with safety. A dividend that looks too generous can be the market's way of whispering that something underneath is breaking. The deeper lesson is that living off dividends begins long before you can quit a job. It begins when you stop seeing money as something that only leaves you. Maya did not become free all at once. She became free one bill at a time. So look at your own life and ask the uncomfortable question: which bill would change your mood if it no longer depended on your paycheck? Comment notes below and check the pinned comment. I'll leave the dividend numbers sheet there so you can find your first target and run the math for yourself. The first dividend may not change your life, but it can change the way you understand who is working for whom.